Welcome everyone to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. It's your host Travis. Today I am back from vacation. I did not release an episode last week because I was floating down the Snake River with John, my old co-host, as many of you remember and know. And it was a blast to disconnect and be away from society and just with a group of guys just wanting to float down a river, fish, hunt, and whitewater raft. So it was a lot of fun. I'll be posting some pictures and maybe some videos in the Facebook group, L Bros, over on the Facebook page or Facebook community. So if you haven't joined there, make sure you guys go join. And been a great mental reset. And so I want to do kind of like back to back episodes um, to kind of get caught up and go over some things that I think are important. Today, I want to discuss asking the right questions in your jujitsu journey. It's crucial to focus on learning and growing, and I want to explore some alternative questions to common questions asked, especially as a white belt. And this is going to be a two-part series. So today's going to be part one, and then tomorrow will be part two. So the first question I want to bring up is when people ask about getting a blue belt. When will I get my blue belt? I don't think very many people ask this question, um, but I think there is a way of asking this question that will prompt a better response from your professor or whoever you are looking for advice from or guidance on how to receive your blue belt. And the way I think you should frame this question is what do you look at when promoting someone to the next rank, whether it's blue belt, purple belt, um, brown belt, black, whatever. When you ask them what are they looking for in that specific rank, I think it opens up a more of a conversation rather than a how do I say like entitledness, right? I think when you ask the question of when am I getting my blue belt or when am I getting my purple belt or something like that, I think it kind of gives off this sense of entitlement, like you deserve that belt, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's up to your professor or whoever promotes you. So I think when you reframe the question to what do you look at when promoting someone to X rank or the next rank, I think it offers a couple points that are great. It promotes asking them, about the criteria and helps you better grasp the expectations and requirements for progression within your rank or to the next rank. Also, it encourages you to concentrate on improving your skills and knowledge rather than pushing through the ranks, which is something that I definitely talk about quite often that was one of my faults was I felt like I focused so much on pushing through the ranks and not just enjoying the journey. I've mentioned this many times before. And then also it allows you to set specific goals based on that criteria that your professor's telling you. I want you to do um, X, Y, and Z, right? And some of that might actually be a weakness of yours, which helps you kind of want to motivate yourself to work on those weaknesses to get to that next belt. So once again, instead of asking, when am I getting my blue belt? When am I getting my purple belt or whatever it is, ask instead, what do you look for when promoting someone to the next rank? I think that'll foster a much better conversation back and forth between you and your professor. Um, Question number 2 that we often hear is, "Can you show me insert technique here?" Whatever it is. Can you show me a buggy choke? Or can you show me heel hooks or straight ankle locks or whatever it is? Instead of asking, "Can you show me this technique?" I think you should ask, um, "What basic submission would I benefit most from learning?" So the reason I say this is because as white belts, we can often get captivated by the Instagrams or the YouTube videos that we see, and we all make jokes about it, right? Like I'm just gonna go in there and practice whatever I want and do whatever I want, or something that I saw on Instagram right before stepping on the mats for class. And I think it's there's good and bad in that because, once again, I mentioned before, having that hunger to learn is great, and having that hunger to explore is fantastic, right? But instead of asking your professor, maybe some off the wall technique that you saw on Instagram, thinking that it might benefit you, instead ask, what's a basic submission that would benefit me the most from learning? And some of the points behind this is it focuses on, the fundamental submissions, um, to ensure like a solid basic, I don't wanna say techniques, before moving on to more advanced ones, because you may think, "Hey, I wanna learn a buggy choke," but you have no idea even how to do a head and arm choke or a triangle or, some other like, uh, strangulation. So, if you wanna learn the buggy choke, but you don't know these other fundamental movements, it might not be beneficial to you. And then also it encourages, like, progression. So maybe your professor thinks that there are specific fundamental submissions that you should know before going into the advanced ones, and maybe he already has a path of techniques or submissions that he would like you to learn or improve on before, um, learning these more advanced ones. And then also it makes you more of a deadlier person, right? Because if you can be more versatile with the basics, the easier it is to learn these more advanced ones. When you look at the highest level guys in jujitsu, a lot of the times they're using very basic submissions, a rear naked choke or, a arm bar or, whatever. And they're not using a whole lot of like fancy things because the basic submissions are always there and they're just very good at getting there and very efficient at getting there. So instead of asking, "Hey, can you show me X, Y, and Z submission?" Instead ask, "What basic submission would I benefit the most from learning?" So just keep that in mind. The the next question that you guys should think about, and this might be a more of a controversial one because everyone talks about size and strength in jujitsu, but a lot of the times, especially smaller practitioners, they'll go up and they'll ask, "How do I beat a bigger and stronger opponent?" And it's a great question because as smaller practitioners, I'm sure, I'm not smaller practitioner, but I'm sure there is a lot of frustrations when going against larger training partners that are bigger and stronger than you, and you feel like there is a little bit um disadvantage that you're constantly facing. And in my opinion, smaller practitioners are almost always more technical than bigger practitioners or larger practitioners, however you want to say it, because they are working against, bigger, stronger opponents all the time. But instead of asking that, because I think it's a very general question, once again, this is to be more of a targeted question, and it is, what techniques work well against opponents with a size and strength advantage? And you could even throw a little bit more targeted response in, and you could say, for my size or my skill level, because your professor or your coach or whatever you want to call them is going to know you better than you probably do because they're teaching you and they're watching you from the outside. So they might say, "Oh, you should really learn how to use like butterfly hooks or wrestling up or whatever it is." So asking, what techniques is or what moves or however you want to phrase it to your professor is going to help. And some of the key advantage of this are it shifts your thinking from beating someone in the training room to being more effective and promoting a kind of like a strategic mind instead of like trying to like brute force through the round. And I honestly think for bigger practitioners, sometimes it is a little bit of a brute force way through roles, especially with smaller practitioners. And so I think it fosters a more of a strategic approach to your roles. It also allows you to increase your adaptability. Well, I guess you could say when you are able to learn ways of beating larger and stronger opponents and how to effectively do that, it helps you in a broader aspect of other opponents or people that you'll roll against, even your training partners. Because even in competition, sometimes you'll go against someone that is bigger and stronger than you. Like you're within a weight bracket, right? You could be at the bottom part of your weight bracket and going against someone that cut weight to be in your weight bracket that is bigger, stronger than you. So being able to face those people, even in competition, is a great thing. Um, so once again, instead of asking, how do I beat a bigger and stronger opponent? Instead, ask, what techniques work well against people that have a size and strength advantage against me? And I think once again, that should foster a better conversation between you and your professor. The next one is going to be something for my purple belts only. For the purple belts out there or white belts that really hate warm-ups, and it's, can we do something else for warm-ups? And I think this might be something that a lot of people don't think about, and I'd honestly, this might throw some shade towards coaches and BJJ coaches out there and BJJ practitioners, but I don't think, um, a lot of people necessarily think about why they do the warm up the way they do. I think a lot of jujitsu practitioners and coaches do warm ups that they are used to doing and they were raised in jujitsu doing. So I think when you ask this alternative question, it might promote them to think about why they do something this way too. And I think the alternate question you should ask is, why are warm ups important for BJJ? Or can you tell me the benefits of doing our warm-ups this way? Because I think if you ask the question that promotes them to think about why they do it, I think it will help them understand why they do it also. And this isn't to say that, you should be changing your coach's mind on why they do warm-ups, but I think you ask them, "Hey, why do we shrimp up and down the mat?" Or "Why do we run around in circles instead of doing this?" Or "Why are we doing bear crawls for 5 minutes?" But asking it in a way of, like, a curious mind instead of a challenging tone, I think that it will benefit you a whole lot better in the long run instead of, like, "Hey, why are warm-ups are stupid." And some of the key aspects of this alternative question is it promotes, like, an educational conversation between you and your coach, and it helps a better understanding of why we warm up the way we warm up, however it is, right? Some people like general calisthenics in the class or a general body warm up with movements. Some people like more of a jujitsu based warm up where they do, fight for underhooks and grips and stuff like that. And it'll help you understand why these things are important to prevent injuries and whatnot. And it also helps promote, like, engagement in the class. So knowing why warm-ups matter can make you more committed to, the part of the training. Because a lot of times I feel like people will just kind of mundanely move through the warm-ups, like, "Oh, man, I just wanna get over this warm-up. I'm over this warm-up. This is so stupid. Why do we keep doing this?" You know what I mean? So I think being able to be more engaged with the why will help you be better at being engaged with it, if that makes sense. I feel like I kinda just repeated myself on there. It also prepares you mentally for the warm up, because acknowledging the value of warm-ups can mentally prepare you for the rest of the training session. Some schools out there, unfortunately, do a super long 30, 45-minute warm-up, and then they'll have like an hour and a half class and half of it's a warm up. For those people, I'm sorry. I don't think there's any changing that. Honestly, I think those are just a way that, those people were brought up in jujitsu and there might be heart stuck in their way of thinking that's the right thing to do. And it's not for everyone. And if you don't enjoy warm ups and they're like that, maybe look for a new academy. I hate to say it, but a lot of the times, those people are been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years. That's the way that they've always done their warm-ups, and they're not gonna change it because they think it works and that's how they were brought up, so they're gonna probably keep that mindset. This next question that I often hear, or not necessarily exactly this, but it is a concern when people first start in jujitsu. And the question is, should I start sparring from day one right now? When should I start sparring? The question of how soon or when should they start, sparring in the class. And once again, everyone's going to ask you or pretty much answer you start from day one. You should start from day one and start sparring, even if you don't have the confidence in what you know or anything like that. Almost everyone in jiu-jitsu is going to tell you to start sparring from day one because that's the moment that we learn the most, or that's the part of the class that we probably learn the most is the action of jiu-jitsu, the performance of jiu-jitsu. So if you ask someone, should I start sparring, or they're most 99% of the time, I can almost guarantee you, they're gonna say, "You should start right now." Your first class, or right away, but instead, I think a better question to ask is, "How can I build my confidence to start sparring?" And the reason I really like this question is because it allows you to get pointers on a very intimidating task that we do in jujitsu, which we expose ourselves when we spar. We expose ourselves to our teammates that we don't know anything or that might be better than us. And I think when you say, "How do I build my confidence?" it also opens up to others, like your coach or even classmates, that you are a little unconfident about participating in sparring. And so if you kind of open that up for discussion, then they can give you kind of more of tips on how they got into sparring and how they feel during sparring. And it gives a little bit of a deeper conversation behind how people get into it. When I started jujitsu, I was in my 20s, mid 20s, and I was just young, athletic, ready to go. So I never had the worries for sparring. But that's not to say that the mom looking to join jujitsu that wants to do it for self defense to prevent, their kids getting taken from them, they might not have that encourage or that courage to start right away. Or someone that was bullied as a kid, or that is very insecure with themselves and their body, they might not have that confidence to start sparring right away. If you are one of those people, ask, "How do I build that confidence to start sparring? What do I need to do to start sparring?" Because it might be keep showing up to class. It might be, "Hey, stay and watch some sparring," or spar with higher belts, or something like that. So that might help you build your confidence. And like I mentioned before, asking this question will acknowledge the potential hesitation and focus on building the mental side of preparing to spar. If you've mentioned that you're hesitant about doing something, a lot of people will help you and assist you in reassuring that everything's going to be okay and whatnot. Now, remember, we're not baking cakes here. We are physically fighting each other. So just keep that in mind too. And once again, it promotes like a progression on how you can ease yourself into this. And that progression is, slowly and gradually easing yourself into sparring and allowing you to feel more comfortable and confident. If it takes a couple of months or a couple of weeks or a couple of days, you're slowly building that confidence to jump in there and really test yourself against your classmates and everything. And it builds your mindset, right? Because if you can admit that you're having a hard time wanting to go through, the sparring aspect, it's going to help you build that confidence and, make you mentally stronger to not have excessive anxiety when you come to class because you have to think, "Oh my god, I got to spar today. Oh man, how am I going to step on the mat? Oh, I feel like professor judges me so much when I don't spar, or I feel like my classmates don't respect me as much because I don't spar." So building that over time allows you to build that mindset, and once again that mental fortitude to being able to do something that you're scared of, and also being able to feel confident in yourself and your skills. But speaking of confidence, today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped, who has taken a step up in Halloween to bring your face the cleanest shave it's ever seen. So this season, no need to troll or trouble. Manscaped's all new Handyman, that's it right here if you guys are watching the video. Can you guys see? Handyman is the best way to get rid of stubble. It's featuring a compact design with the next gen skin safe technology, and the Handyman was designed to give you the smooth finish without the mess and trouble of a traditional shave. Get the sweet treat for this Halloween by going to manscaped.com and using code ETP20 at checkout for 20% off and free shipping. I started using this Handyman to shave my neck after I trim my face with the beard trimmer, and thing is amazing. I have not got one nick or cut or anything on it, and it gets super smooth. My wife actually loves it. I'm not used to using like a traditional electric razor like this, but dude, this thing is amazing. I also use it like on top of my beard to like shave my cheeks down and create like a nice line. If you guys are watching the video, it looks pretty fantastic, I must admit. So don't forget to get 20% off and free shipping with code ETP20 at checkout at manscaped.com. Once again, that's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using code ETP20. For a look as sweet as candy, get yourself the Handyman from Manscaped. So for the next question is kind of ties into the one earlier about showing me the specific technique, but it is, what is the technique that works best for insert scenario here, I'm trapped inside control. How do I escape? Or what is the surefire way to get out of a triangle? Or whatever it is. And I think a better question to ask, because that's such an open-ended and hard to target down exactly what the answer would be, because there's so many variables in a certain situation. I think a better question to ask is, what principles should I focus on for a strong jujitsu foundation? So the nice, beautiful thing about principles and, let's say, concepts or something like that is it allows you to have an idea behind the role the entire time, or key aspects that you should always think about no matter what situation you're in, like inside position, not allowing someone to control your head, underhooks, all these things, not allowing people to get chest to chest or chest to back, or having short and long frames, all these things that Jordan talks about in his Jiu-Jitsu theory course, link down below. Elbows tight 25 at checkout if you guys haven't checked it out yet. But this all the like the concepts and the principles that Jordan goes over in that are things that you should really be thinking about. And when you ask the question of what principles or concepts should I focus on for like a strong jiu-jitsu foundation, one of the things that it really does is it emphasizes like the fundamentals, right? It's not giving you the answer of how to exactly do something. It's telling you the fundamental things that you should think about within jujitsu. So it like encourages white belts to prioritize fundamental position or fundamental principles or concepts over specific techniques. Because even if someone gives you a specific technique that might work in that scenario, there's no guarantee that it's going to work. But if you understand these concepts or principles, then it's going to help you a lot more. And then focusing on principles ensures for a more stable and adaptable foundation that can like evolve in all jujitsu scenarios. So just keep that in mind. Also, it encourages creativity because understanding principles allows you to apply them creatively in various situations against various people that you're rolling against, and it fosters a deeper understanding of you as a practitioner within the gentle art of folding people while they're still in their clothes. And it also like I said, and it allows you to just be more adaptable in a lot of situations that are just crazy, and there's so many variables and whatnot. But if you understand like core concepts and core principles of jujitsu, then it makes you being able to escape or defend or whatever a whole lot easier. And if you made it this far, welcome to EBI Overtime. Uh, and this is the final question for this episode that I think is super important, and it's about improvement and learning. And instead of asking why do I keep getting submitted or why do I keep getting tapped by so and so, the answer is most likely going to be because they're better than you, or you got caught, or you made a mistake. And I think a better question that you can ask your professor is, how can I learn from my losses and improve from them? Because then you are looking at more of a mindset of accepting these losses but wanting to improve, and that allows people to give you pointers on how they have improved from their losses. Because once again, I think the idea of how do I stop getting submitted is is kind of a not I don't wanna say entitled, but it definitely just kinda comes off to me a little bit like, "What do you mean, how do you stop getting tapped? You never stop getting tapped." You know what I mean? Everyone gets submitted. So, you'll never get a straight answer on that, but when you ask, "How can I improve from my losses?" I think that opens up a door to specific tips and specific ideas that people can give you, like, "Hey, maybe you should journal after each roll and pay attention to how you got submitted and whatnot. Hey, maybe you should video yourself and then show me your video afterwards, and then we can go over some ideas on how or some ways that you can stop from getting submitted." And it builds a positive perspective and shifts your focus from the negativity side of jujitsu, like I keep getting submitted, keep submitted, to a more of a growth mindset and encouraging you to see losses as opportunities for growth, if that makes sense. So instead of your class, it changes your mindset from my glass is half empty because I keep getting submitted to my glass is half full, which I'm learning and I'm trying to fill that cup. You see what I'm saying? If that makes sense to you, is how I look at that. And it's motivation to learn from your losses and foster resilience and your like determination to be more of a resilient practitioner because you're not going to allow your losses to get to you. You're not going to allow those downs in your journey to get to you because you're going to be like, look, I keep getting submitted by this person. I need to focus and I need to understand why it's happening. So it fosters a little bit more motivation for you. And then it also promotes active learning. So which is great because it shows or it makes you shift your mind in the role from once again that kind of like victim or negative mindset to wanting to learn more. You're like, a great thing to do is after someone submits you, you can always ask like, "How did you get me with that? Can you show me that later?" You know what I mean? So that way they show you a little bit of their game. So maybe next time they're not going to get you with it. Just throwing that out there. Also, it's kind of like you're like, "Oh, can you show me that? That way you never get me with it again." But if you're rolling against someone better than you, they'll probably still get it because they're just better at it than you. But, it helps with a, positive, like, active learning environment for yourself. So, those are the first 7 questions that, I think you guys should shift your mindset and try to think of these alternative questions. I really think there's a lot of value in asking targeted and specific questions instead of more generalized, ambiguous, answers that don't really hone in on what you want to learn. Like I tell my son all the time, ask the question you want to ask. Don't ask a general question because you're going to get a general answer. If there is a specific thing that you are looking for, ask that specific question and get as targeted as possible for yourself so that way you get the answer that can benefit you the most. All right, guys? So let me know if you guys answer or ask any of these questions, or you're gonna shift the questions to something similar to what I have. And yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think. Be sure to DM me on Instagram, follow me everywhere, Elbows Tight everywhere, elbowstight.com for merch. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to Watch Home and enjoy the next one. Peace.